Hello good people, I'm going to talk about radicals or roots. Radicals or roots are the inverse of powers. However, before I talk about radicals, I'm quickly going to revisit bases and powers. So the general formula is written up here above. A base raised to a certain power will give some sort of value or result. So this means that if I have a base and a power, I can calculate a result. For example, I might have a base of 3 and that will be raised to the second power. This essentially means 3 multiplied by 3 and that will give me 9. Another example might be 5 raised to the power of 3. This now means take 3 5s and multiply them together. So 5 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5. And that will give 125. So this formula at the top of the screen is very good for calculating the value. But what if I want to figure out the base? In other words, what if I have been given the value and the power, but I have not been given the base? So for example, I might have some unknown base that is going to be raised to the second power, and when all is said and done, that will give 36. Some might instinctively know the solution to this problem, but how do we set it up mathematically? Well, this is where radicals or roots come into play. So how does that look? Well, here's my unknown base. And now I'm going to use the radical symbol. So here it is. And I'm going to place the value beneath the radical symbol. So I have the radical symbol and then 36 beneath. I'm also going to place the power at the start of the radical. So this is now read as b equals the second root of 36. Please note that the second root is sometimes read as the square root. And more often than not, a square root is written without this 2. What do I mean by that? Well, we could rewrite this equation. I could write b equals the radical symbol and then the 36 beneath the radical symbol. If I do not place a value here at the very start of the radical, it is automatically assumed that I'm talking about a second root or a square root. So how do we solve this using our calculator? If I'm talking about a square root or a second root, I can use this button here, the one with the radical symbol and the white blank square. So I will press that, and then in this box I will enter 36. And finally I will press the equal button. And that will give me 6 as the result. So I can say that b equals 6. And that makes sense, because 6 multiplied by 6 will give me 36. Let's do another one. Let's say I have b raised to the power of 3, and that equals 343. I need to solve for the base, which means I need to use the radical. So I'm going to write b equals, then the radical symbol, then I'm going to place 343 beneath the radical symbol. But because we are talking about a third power, I also need to be talking about a third root. So I'm going to write a little 3 here in the superscript at the start of the radical symbol. And now I'm going to use my calculator. In this case, I need to use a different button. I cannot use the button I used in the previous example. So I need to press Shift and then this X raised to the white blank square button, and that will give me this radical symbol. In the upper square, I'm going to enter the power, 3, then I'm going to move the cursor to the right, and in the lower square, the one beneath the radical symbol, I'm going to enter the value, 343. And finally, I will press the equal button, and I will get 7. So I can say that b, or the base, equals 7. I can also use the calculator to check if this result is correct. So I'm going to enter 7 raised to the power of 3. If everything is correct, I should get 343. And lo and behold, I do, which means our solution for the base is correct. Let's do one more. So I will have b raised to the power of 4, and that will give a value of 4096. In order to solve for b, I need to use the radical symbol. So I will have b equals, then the radical symbol, the value will be written beneath the radical symbol, and then because we are talking about b raised to the power of 4, I'm going to take the fourth root of 4096. Calculator to the rescue. So once again, I press Shift, then the x raised to the white blank square, and then I can enter 4, move the cursor to the right, and enter the value, 4096. And finally, press the equal button. And the result is 8. So in this case, I can say that b equals 8. Again, let's check the result. So I'm going to enter 8 raised to the power of 4, and I get 4096, which means my solution is correct. Finally, based on all of these examples, I can write a general formula for solving for the base. I could say that base equals a certain radical p of the value b. So now, when given a power and a value, I can use this formula to solve for the base. That is all for now, and I will see you on the flip side.